Hello, all you freedom-loving people. Secretary of State Marco Rubio designated 4 Antifa groups as foreign terrorist organizations. The Senate said we can expect some food prices to be lowered, and President Trump hosted the Wall Street Titans to help strengthen his second-term economic policy. Okay, let's get into it. Today, Attorney General Pam Bondi announced that an individual attempted to confront acting attorney for the District of New Jersey, Alina Habba, last night. Bondi said that Habba is okay, except the individual destroyed property in her office and then fled the scene. In a post on X, Bondi warned that violence or threats against federal officers will not be tolerated, noting that such attacks are increasingly common as radicals target law enforcement nationwide. Bondi also made sure that the DOJ will find the suspect, will protect their agents, and will use every legal tool to bring the offender to justice. As acting attorney and special attorney to the Attorney General, Habba oversees all federal criminal prosecutions and civil cases in New Jersey for the federal government. Habba also supervises the Office of Newark, Camden, and Trenton, where she supervises about 155 federal prosecutors and 130 support staff. After the incident, Habba reposted Bondi's post and wrote, "I will not be intimidated by radical lunatics for doing my job." And today, Secretary of State Marco Rubio announced that the State Department has designated 4 Antifa groups as both foreign terrorist organizations and specially designated global terrorists. Those groups are Antifa OST, Armed Proletarian Justice, Revolutionary Class Self-Defense, and the Informal Anarchist Federation / International Revolutionary Front. President Trump first declared Antifa a domestic terrorist organization in September after the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Officials have tied the assassination to an Antifa-style ideology. And yesterday, we reported that Antifa-aligned protesters used violent tactics against attendees of the Turning Point USA event at the University of California, Berkeley. So now the new designation enhances the government's authority in investigating and prosecuting. At 8:23 p.m. last night, the House of Representatives voted on a bill to reopen the federal government with 22 votes in favor and 209 votes against, and with a few absent. 6 Democratic members voted with the Republicans. Representatives Jared Golden, Tom Suozzi, Adam Gray, Marie Perez, Don Davis, and Henry Cuellar voted in favor of the bill. 5 of the 6 Democrats who crossed the aisle posted brief explanations on X, while Gray did not issue a public statement. Suozzi, Golden, Davis, and Cuellar each said reopening was necessary to pay federal workers and restore key services, including SNAP. Perez stressed the urgency to end the shutdown and said that addressing rising premiums should not come at the expense of hungry families, calling for practical cross-party work on affordability. And just 2 hours after the bill passed in the House, President Trump signed it into law at approximately 10:25 local time.
On this vote, the yeas are 222, the nays are 209. The bill is passed. The motion is adopted.
So with my signature, the federal government will now resume normal operations, and my administration and our partners in Congress will continue our work to lower the cost of living, restore public safety, grow our economy, and make America affordable again. I want to also thank the 8 Senate Democrats who finally did the right thing in voting to end this craziness, this madness, but unfortunately the vast majority of congressional Democrats were happy for millions of Americans to suffer. They really did suffer too.
The majority of House Democrats remain strongly opposed to the deal. They are angry that their Senate Democratic colleagues failed to secure an extension of Obamacare subsidized benefits in the negotiations. The longest government shutdown in U.S. history has officially ended with the signing of the bill by President Trump. The focus of global markets immediately turned to the expectations of Fed rate cuts and delayed economic data. Recently, there has been a rare split within the Fed. Officials are divided over which is more important, dealing with persistent inflation or a weak labor market, making it even more uncertain whether interest rates will be cut again in December. The two factions argued fiercely during the October meeting. Some officials have called on a moratorium on interest rate cuts on the basis that rates are now close to their neutral level. Their concern is further loosening of the currency could lead to renewed inflationary pressures. However, dovish officials argue that slowing wage growth and stagnant hiring indicate weak demand in the labor market. But if the Fed acts too slowly, it could push the economy into a recession. The two camps had become further polarized by the government shutdown, which led to the suspension of employment and inflation data. This left officials relying on survey data from private companies and market rumors to judge the direction of the economy. In the current economic climate, the Fed is facing controversy in three key areas. The first is the tariff-induced price increase, which is a one-off event. Hawks worry that after absorbing the initial cost of the tariffs, companies will pass more costs on to consumers next year, pushing up prices. Doves argue that companies have so far been reluctant to pass on the full cost of tariffs to consumers, which signals weak demand. Second is the slowdown in monthly non-farm job growth due to businesses' weak demand for labor or a lack of labor supply, in some cases due to reduced immigration. In the former case, maintaining high interest rates will lead to a recession. In the latter case, cutting interest rates may overstimulate demand. The third area of controversy is whether interest rates are still restrictive to the economy. The Hawks believe that interest rates are already at a near neutral level, which neither stimulate nor inhibit economic growth, and that the risk of further rate cuts is therefore higher. Doves, on the other hand, believe that interest rates remain restrictive. A cut in interest rates could support the recovery of the labor market. Whether the Fed will cut rates again at the December meeting is hard to predict. Perhaps with the government reopening, new official economic data will put an end to the debate. However, the White House said yesterday that the work of the Bureau of Labor Statistics has been on hold for much of the time due to the longest government shutdown in U.S. history. As a result, data that should have been collected were not. U.S. employment and inflation data for October may never be compiled and released. Democrats were successful in the recent local elections because of their advocacy of affordable living. This has accelerated the Trump administration's move to lower prices. Yesterday, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said in an interview with Fox and Friends that the Trump administration is on the verge of launching a major tariff program with the goal of bringing down food prices and easing the pressure on American consumers. Bessent said, "It's tough to do a lot of specific things, but I can tell you, Brian, you're going to see some substantial announcements over the next couple of days in terms of things we don't grow here in the United States. Coffee, bananas, and other fruits." Although Bessent did not disclose the specifics of the announcement, President Trump has previously said that it would involve lowering some tariffs. President Trump said, "Coffee, we're going to lower some tariffs." Coffee was probably one of the fastest rising food items in price last year. Its price rose 19%, bananas rose nearly 7%, and canned fruit rose 5%. Coffee future prices on the Intercontinental Exchange in the U.S. fell more than 3%, and Starbucks shares rose more than 2% after Bessent's remarks. President Trump also addressed the issue of prices on a Fox program. He said that the government is making food more affordable. He believes that beef is the only product with high prices. However, this is good news for ranchers. Bessent said that higher import taxes could bring in trillions of dollars over the next decade, but he emphasized that the main purpose of tariffs is not to make money for the government, but to put trade back on a fair track. White House spokeswoman Caroline Leavitt says that the government shutdown may have reduced the economic growth rate by as much as 2 percentage points in the fourth quarter. As economic performance and cost of living issues continued to weigh, President Trump invited a number of Wall Street leaders to the White House for dinner yesterday. Attendees included J.P. Morgan Chase CEO Jamie Dimon, BlackRock CEO Larry Fink, Goldman Sachs CEO David Solomon, BlackRock founder Stephen Schwartz, and KKR co-founder Henry Kravis, and more than a dozen other financial industry executives. But Bank of America CEO Brian Moynihan was not invited. He had refused to offer banking services to President Trump and his allies. Analysts point out that the move signals the Trump administration is actively repairing its relationship with the financial sector, seeking to rebuild confidence through the capital markets. This is also the second time in a short period that President Trump has invited top U.S. business leaders to the White House for dialogue, following his September meeting with Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella, OpenAI CEO Sam Altman, and Apple CEO Tim Cook to discuss AI investment. This suggests that President Trump is accelerating efforts to establish a triple alliance of industry, capital, policy in his second term. Analysts have pointed out that the meeting is also seen as an attempt by President Trump to send policy-friendly signals to the market. Over the past few months, President Trump has repeatedly promised to cut corporate regulation, to simplify capital requirements, and to reconsider some of the bank prudential regulations in order to stimulate credit flows and business expansion. President Trump's relationship with Wall Street has had its ups and downs since he won the 2024 election. His early DOGE cost-cutting programs and Liberation Day tariffs once caused market turmoil. However, these tensions have eased recently. Wall Street confidence has been restored as a new group of financial regulators appointed by President Trump signaled a reduction in the regulatory burden on the industry. Market observers pointed out that President Trump is more pragmatic and he has a more transactional way to rebuild the Wall Street circle of friends. The U.S. financial sector was generally strengthened after news of the dinner. J.P. Morgan Chase, Goldman Sachs, and Morgan Stanley all hit new all-time highs, and the financials ETF was up 1% on the day. Analysts point out that although no specific policy details were announced at the dinner, its symbolic significance was huge. It marked President Trump's capital cooperation instead of policy confrontation, and it regrouped Wall Street power to support his economic agenda. Whether it is to repair the relationship with Wall Street or to stabilize market confidence, the White House dinner is seen as a turning point in President Trump's second-term economic policy. The Department of Transportation, the DOT, said yesterday that California has revoked 17,000 illegally issued commercial driver's licenses. California is a sanctuary state, and its lax approach to immigration has resulted in a large number of non-residents holding commercial driver's licenses or commercial driver's learning permits. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy noted that his auditors found that California has 25% commercial driver's license holders who are not residents of the state. In the first half of this year, a number of major car accidents were caused by non-U.S. residents holding a commercial driver's license, including 2 undocumented immigrant truck drivers in California. These accidents resulted in multiple fatalities. This has brought undocumented truck drivers to the attention of federal law enforcement. The Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration issued an emergency rule in September that restricts non-residents from obtaining commercial driver's licenses except for H-2A, H-2B, and E-2 visa holders. But the motion was suspended on Monday by a court of appeals for the District of Columbia. The court stated that the purpose of the stay of the executive order was to allow the court sufficient time to consider and scrutinize the emergency motion and was not a ruling on the substance of the motion. Following numerous rounds of crossfire between the Safety Administration and the California DMV, it seems that California is starting to amend its measures in response to the threat of the DOT withdrawing federal funding. According to a DOT announcement, the California DMV has illegally issued 17,000 commercial driver's licenses to at-risk foreign drivers and is currently in the process of revoking them. The DOT press release stated that these 17,000 licensees have been notified that their driver's licenses will expire in 60 days. Duffy indicated that the federal government would withhold $160 million from California if the state did not revoke all commercial driver's licenses that were issued in violation of federal regulations. Last month, the DOT had announced a $40 million funding hold on California, citing alleged violations of its English language proficiency requirements for issuing commercial driver's licenses. Dana Williamson, the former chief of staff to California Governor Gavin Newsom, has been charged by the Justice Department for alleged political corruption. Williamson was Newsom's third chief of staff. Her strong leadership style and political influence established her as a key figure in California politics, earning her both praise from allies and criticism from her opponents. Prior to joining Newsom's team, she ran the consulting firm Grace Public Affairs, and she served as a senior aide to several California elected officials, including Governor Jerry Brown and Governor Gray Davis. However, Williamson resigned from Governor Newsom's office in December 2024 because of her dispute with Newsom over California's Proposition 36. The proposition would have reclassified some misdemeanor drug and theft offenses as felonies, which Newsom opposed. According to the U.S. Department of Justice's indictment, Williamson faces charges related to fraud, obstruction of justice, and tax offenses. Also indicted were Greg Campbell, Sean McCluskey, and 4 others on 23 counts of conspiracy to commit wire fraud and bank fraud. McCluskey was longtime chief of staff to California Attorney General Xavier Becerra. Becerra, a former Biden administration official, is currently running for governor. The indictment alleges that Williamson and 2 co-conspirators, through accounts they controlled, diverted approximately $225,000 of Becerra's defunct state political campaign funds between February 2022 and September 2024 for McCluskey's personal use. The indictment also states that Williamson charged the account $7,500 per month for counseling services, and that McCluskey would approve those payments. In addition, Williamson was charged with filing false tax returns, claiming more than $1 million in business expense deductions for personal expenses. These expenses included $15,353 for a Chanel handbag and ring, $10,000 paid to relatives, $19,000 for the heating and air conditioning system in her home, and $21,175 for chartering a private jet. Yesterday, we described one of the latest experiments in Silicon Valley to take AI as a freelancer and put it into the real world to see if it can complete projects to make the client happy and to ultimately get paid. So what would you expect the results to be? Did AI have a high completion rate? Did it work quickly? And did it earn far more than humans? The results were very surprising. None of the AI models that participated in the test achieved a completion rate of more than 3% on projects. They were far from comparable to humans. Manus was the best performer with a success rate of just 2.5%, where only 6 out of 240 tasks were completed. Converted into earnings, this equals $1,720 compared to the $144,000 that a human could have earned by completing all of those tasks. Other models fared even worse. Grok 4 and Claude Monet 4.5 were slightly behind first place, both at 2.1%. GPT-5 at 1.7%, ChatGPT Agent at 1.3%, and Gemini 2.5 at the bottom of the pack at 0.8%. The research team found that AI failures are not random and are concentrated in these 4 categories or a combination of several types. In the first category, 45.6% of the assignments were of too low a quality and did not meet professional standards. In the second category, 35.7% of the tasks were incomplete or incorrectly formatted, such as truncated videos or missing files. In the third category, 17.6% of the assignments had technical and document integrity issues, such as corruption and encoding errors. And in the fourth category, 14.8% of tasks had serious visual or logical inconsistencies, such as mismatched multi-camera viewpoints and conflicting documents. A typical example was in a jewelry design project, where the AI's task was to modify the supplied ring image to change the diamond cut. As a result, it completely ignored the original image that was provided by the client, and it generated 2 brand new AI images at random. The quality of the images were amateurish, and they were not according to the requirements. The 2 new images didn't even match each other. But after all, AI is not entirely useless. It is still a bit talented in some specific types of tasks. These tasks are mainly focused on 2 categories. First, creative tasks, such as producing sound effects and designing logos. And secondly, producing basic content tasks, such as part of a data organization or writing. Put simply, AI is good at creating from scratch and has strong creative abilities. However, when the task involves stringing together multiple tools, performing multi-step operations, maintaining consistency between files, or secondary editing of other people's results, AI is completely unintelligent. If it's a simple task like data organization and basic copywriting, then the AI pass rate can reach 25 to 30%. But with complex tasks involving cross-tool collaboration and creative planning, then the AI pass rate is less than 5%. And those simple tasks are exactly the daily routine of many human junior positions. This is also consistent with real-life situations. For example, Harvard analyzed hiring data from 5 million U.S. companies, and they concluded that introducing AI resulted in an average of 7.7% drop in entry-level job hiring. This was particularly evident in industries where processes are standardized, such as wholesale and retail and administrative support. And that's a wrap for this episode. Thank you so much for your support of Front Page. Please remember to leave a comment below the video. This is really helping us to be seen all around the world. The more people who watch Front Page, the more freedom-loving people the world will have. And please hit the like button and hit the notification bell after subscribing. And please share this video with your friends and family, because everybody deserves to know the truth.